Welcome everyone to this discussion. Today we're delving into what really drives China's rise, as explained by Peter Walker. It's fascinating how his perspective ties together historical culture with modern government policy.
Absolutely, there's a lot to unpack. So, what do you think is the most compelling point he makes?
Well, for starters, he points out that Confucian values are at the heart of China's progress. You know, these traditional principles really emphasize self improvement, hard work,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
education. It's like these values have molded the mindset of countless individuals over centuries.
And that intrinsic drive is so different from the Western individualism we sometimes see.
Right, right. It's like, when you see someone so focused on self betterment that it almost seems natural. This emphasis on education and continual improvement is one pillar of their model.
It really sets the stage, doesn't it? But beyond culture, he also talks about the government structure.
Yes, exactly. And that's the second big point. Peter Walker highlights that China's rise is bolstered by a strong, centralized
Exactly.
government. This government isn't just large, it's filled with highly talented individuals who manage the state affairs in a very coordinated way.
I wonder, though, some might argue that such centralization stifles dissent. Isn't that a potential drawback?
That's a fair point, but from Walker's perspective, that same centralization actually allows them to implement industrial policies with a long term vision. So the government's efficiency becomes a strength rather than a
Right, I
limitation.
can see that working. And speaking of industrial policies, that's the third point, right?
Yep, exactly. He emphasizes that China's industrial policies are designed with long term progress in mind. It's like, rather than chasing short term gains, they're looking at systemic improvements.
So it's less about instant gratification and more about building sustainable growth over time.
Precisely. And these policies ensure that critical sectors aren't just growing, they're evolving in a way that supports future development. It
Strong
almost
strategy.
reminds me of planting a tree and knowing that one day it will provide shade long after you're gone.
That's a vivid analogy. Truly, it gives a sense of long term planning and resilience.
And then the fourth point he makes is about the coherent and unified population. There's a tremendous strength there. When a population is unified, it can mobilize and support national efforts in ways that are almost unparalleled.
Yeah, it sounds like he's saying that social cohesion plays a huge role, but do you think that kind of unity could, at times, suppress individual voices?
That's a thoughtful challenge. I mean, it's possible. However, Walker seems to argue that for China, that unity has historically meant working together towards a common goal, which in the context of national strength has been a net positive.
I see your point. And it's interesting because the US narrative often misses these points, right?
Exactly. The US perspective tends to focus more on market driven innovation and individual enterprise, often overlooking how deeply entrenched cultural values and centralized policy can drive an entire nation forward.
It's like comparing apples to oranges sometimes. One relies on individual spark, the other on a well oiled collective machine.
Definitely. And it's like the whole idea of trade offs. While a centralized system might sacrifice some individual freedoms, it gains here in consistency and coordinated progress.
Right. Speaking of trade offs, isn't there a risk that too much uniformity could hinder innovation?
Sure, that's a critique that some scholars offer, but Peter Walker's argument is that the coordinated effort allows for the allocation of resources towards innovation in a more directed way. It's like rather than every individual trying to reinvent the wheel, there's a unified push towards areas that matter most.
Yeah, exactly. That's quite a contrast to decentralized innovation ecosystems.
Absolutely. And it's interesting to think about. For instance, when you compare, say, Silicon Valley's explosion of startups with China's carefully planned industrial clusters, you see two different approaches to innovation.
True, each has its own efficiency. I guess it all depends on what the end goals are.
Exactly. While the US may celebrate rapid, disruptive innovation, China's model invests in slow and steady progress that's sustainable in the long run.
Very strategic. And what about the influence of the media narrative? I noticed the source is Global Times, which is known to be aligned with the government's perspective.
That's a good observation, and it does color the narrative somewhat. But even if one views it critically, the underlying factors Confucian work ethic, centralized talent, proactive industrial policy, and unified society remain compelling in explaining China's trajectory.
Right. So while the source might have its biases, the points raised are still backed by historical patterns and observable strategies.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because it forces us to re examine our assumptions about what drives national success. It challenges the notion that only a free market, individualistic approach leads to prosperity.
Definitely. And it also makes you think about how history and culture can shape policy. It's kind of fascinating, really.
Yeah, it's like the nation is more than just its government or economy. It's a tapestry of tradition, strategy, and people's collective
Right,
will.
right. Do you think this model is sustainable in the face of global challenges?
That's a great question. I mean, there's always the argument that any centralized model might struggle with local level issues. However, Walker suggests that the deliberate approach to long term priorities helps mitigate those risks, even if it's not perfect.
It's a trade off. It makes one wonder, though, if this could be a model other developing countries might adopt.
That is an intriguing thought. Some nations might learn from this approach of pushing collective goals through strong leadership and institutional stability. But every country has its own history and cultural drivers.
Yeah, exactly. And let's not forget the role of public sentiment. This unified population isn't just a policy outcome, it's rooted in shared cultural identity and history.
Precisely. And while critiques exist about potential downsides like limited individual expression, one can't deny that this unity has played a significant role in every phase of China's development.
I agree. So, in wrapping up, it seems clear that the blend of tradition, strategic governance, targeted industrial policies, and social cohesion are deeply interwoven in driving China's rise, even if there are areas of healthy debate.
Absolutely. And it's these layers that really make the discussion about China's growth so rich and complex. Thanks for diving into these insights with me.
My pleasure. It's always invigorating to explore how history and policy collide to shape our world today.